Oh, hi.
Hi. Hello, Heather.
No. To start off with, would you like to say your name and where you are?
My name is Ewurasi Cecilia Dei-Anang, and I'm in Roman Ridge, Accra. Accra is the capital city of Ghana in West Africa.
Hmm. Okay. And I didn't ask you before, but I met you with one name, and now I'm finding that you have another name. Is there a story to your name?
Yes, I have a very long name. Actually, I am Cecilia Nana JC Akon Dei-Anang. So Dei-Anang is my surname, and Cecilia was my paternal grandmother's name. It never felt like mine, but I was named after her. And Nana Jesi Akon is a name that comes from a stool house. And when we say a stool house, we mean a royal home. So it's a titled name. I was named after a male warrior.
Oh,
I should have been called Jesiwa as a female version of Jesi, but my grandfather named me Nana Jesi Akon. And Erasy is really a pet name. So I prefer Erasy now. I prefer using Erasy because it reminds me of to be tender.
instead of
So
being a male warrior.
yeah, I work with Cecilia because it's
Hmm.
on all my documents.
Right.
But Erasy, Erasy is a tender name. It means lady AC. It reminds me to be ladylike actually, because I used to be quite a tomboy. So I was
Okay.
I was the only girl amongst boys, five boys and sometimes six because we had a cousin who lived with us. And so Erasy reminds me, that I'm a lady like.
Perfect.
It's about presence, isn't it? So
Hmm. Yeah,
yeah,
very much.
yeah.
Okay. So
So
the
you can
first
call me
question
Cecilia.
for you. Sorry?
You can call me Cecilia if it's easier for you.
No, no, that's okay.
Yeah.
Erisi is nice. So I am curious who you are as a human being and what you would say some of your values or your qualities or your passions are.
So I think I was made to love, and so love is my primary value. It's my core. Okay, because I was born to a woman who was going through trauma, and she spent 2 years at home, didn't leave the house, and she poured every ounce of love in her and me. My mother had time to nurture me in my tender years. So I tend to bring comfort. I'm not always sweet, but I am a solution finder. I like to help people. I like to bring solutions to things. I like harmony. So, wherever there's conflict, if I can support, I'm there. So love and service, I think, is what most people would say about me, and it's what I actually believe in.
Okay. So I'm curious what comes to mind as an event or as a set of circumstances at some point in your life that you would say really defined or shaped who you are?
Wow. Um, one of the things that shaped who I am now was going to live with my grandmother at age 7. So my mother remarried when I was 4, and my stepdad was such a loving man, and I loved him to bits. And he came into the marriage with 2 sons. My mom came with my older brother and I, and everything was just lovely. And one day, my grandmother came to visit and decided she was going home with me because I was becoming a tomboy. Uh, I think she wanted to give me some of the upbringing that my mother had. So she took me home with her. Loved my grandma, my maternal grandmom, and my granddad, who called me friend. It was a very lovely home, a very open home with people milling in and out. Grandma's home was like a hospital, a hotel. You know, you're sleeping and she'll wake you up. Can you come and lie by me? Somebody needs your bed. And, in the darkness, you see a weeping mother with her children huddled up. Grandma was always helping people. And I think some of that, stayed with me. And then she sent me to a school which was quite far away from her home, but she felt that was a good school. So I'd have to commute um, with another helper in the house who would take me to school. We'd take 2 or 3 trotros. Trotros are public transport. They're the bone shakers, they call them. Wooden lorries without windows or doors. You literally climb up and sit on a bench, and there's no windows. Okay. So every so often she would use her car for evangelism during the school holidays. And then when school opens, the car is broken down, and I'd have to go to school in this lorry. And, from the station to the school is a fair walk. So I'm walking up the hill, and my friends are being driven to school in their Porsche cars, and they're laughing at me. Some of them would sometimes stop and try to give me a lift, you know. If they had parents in the car who knew my mom or my family, they'd stop and pick me up. But very earlier on in life, I learned that the content of a person, the character, is what really matters. Um, the external things don't really matter. So I learned how to embrace different people. Grandma had a friend who lived opposite who was an imam. She was a Pentecostal evangelist and also an educationist. She was a school principal. So diversity for her was no big deal. She looked to the soul of the person, you know. So this imam was across the road and they were good friends. During Ramadan, she would go and join them when they break fast and watch them pray. And then Christmas, they'd come over and celebrate with us as well. Um, so yes, growing up with her, harmony, the fabric of the person. Who is this person? That's the focus. And she put that in me. I didn't realize it till much later on when I started collecting people myself. So that's one of the things. Another defining moment was when at age 8, I decided I wasn't going to go to the secondary school my family had in mind for me. So in my family, all the girls go to Wesley Girls High School and all the boys go to Infantsipim Boys College. So that's the brothers' school of Wesley Girls. My father and his brothers went there. My mom and her sisters went there. My mom's brothers went there. It's a tradition. Then enter Cecilia Ewurasi, age 8. Already I was too young for my class. I had been jumped twice in school. So I was 2 years younger than my year group. And we're choosing schools, and I choose the Prince of Wales College, which is Achimota School. It's a co-ed, not a single-sex school like the others. It's a co-ed school in the city of Accra. And of course, there was hell and high water. You're not going there. And I said, oh, yes, I am. Did I win? Yes, I did. So I'm the only member of my family that went to Achimota School. So you can imagine family reunions, all the Wesley Girls people, sing their song, and I'm the only Accra. Actually, I'm not the only Accra. My mom's sister's husband went to Achimota School, and he introduced me to that school. He took me there to watch the Mikado, which is a Japanese opera. And I'm talking about 1979 or 78. It was amazing. I thought this is the school I want to go to. So yes, I went to Achimota for 3 years. The coup had happened in Ghana. schools were not really doing well, my father came and took me out and sent me to a school in Shropshire in the United Kingdom.
Hmm.
So 3 years in Achimota School in Ghana, and then 4 years in Morton Hall, Western Ring, Shropshire.
It's a big change at
A
a
big
very young
thing.
age.
It was big, Heather. I cannot tell you. I was one of 3 Black girls in this 300 girls boarding school.
Wow.
Yeah. And Shropshire, I mean, Shropshire is in the Midlands of the United Kingdom. It's not near London where, an aunt can just pop in and check on you. This was like
Hmm.
way out there. But I was blessed to have an environment that had international students. Even though I was one of 3 Black girls, um, there were other ethnic people there. So, yes, it was strange for me and strange for them, but I didn't really suffer, racism as such. A couple of people make comments, and it's just white privilege. They had no clue what they were saying at the time.
Mm.
And recently, during the Black Lives Matters uh, riots, I had a couple of them send me private notes of apologies and asking me questions. We're so sorry. We had no clue. Did you feel bad when we said these things? And I spoke to them, but I also gave them love because they need not suffer so much. Yes, it was painful at the time, and no, I didn't know it was out of ignorance at the time, so it was even more painful.
Hmm.
But looking back, it was a great learning point for them. So Morton Hall, I went to visit Morton Hall, hoping to send my daughter there. We got there, and there's still only 3 Black girls. So a friend of mine and I, Wura, we decided no. So Wura managed to send 2 more of her nieces there. Wura is from Nigeria, and she managed to encourage some of her friends, her brothers, I think, and her friends to send their daughters there. So yeah,
Wow.
very
Okay.
defining moment in my life. Yes.
Hmm. For
Yeah.
sure. So, what about other people? I'm curious what person comes to mind as someone who had a major influence in your life?
Ah, Margaret Thatcher. Margaret Thatcher was Prime Minister of the UK when I got there, and oh my goodness, um, made you believe anything was possible. A few years prior, she had said, "No woman in my lifetime will ever be Prime Minister of this country." And then fast forward a couple of years, and she was Prime Minister of the UK. And
Hmm.
and in her time, you work hard, you save your money, you get a property, you build your life up. You start when you're young, and you work hard, and you save, and so that had such an impact on me as a teenager, and couldn't wait to get into the workforce, work hard, and build my life. Another person who had great influence on me in my teens, early 20s, was Louis Farrakhan. Louis Farrakhan, I found to be, he knew a lot about the Bible more than I did. And at one stage, because of him, I started reading the Quran. I started reading about Buddhism. Curiosity about other religions
Hmm.
really took over. And after maybe 4 years of that journey, I came back to Christian principles. And so for me, I say I'm a follower of Christ, because Christ was love. He didn't judge, he healed people, he comforted people, and he fought for those who were vulnerable. And truly, that's me. I try to follow Christ. Yeah.
Okay.
Another person was Winnie Mandela. Yes, Winnie Mandela was a big influence on me. You know, because of her, I became an activist. I
Mhm.
marched, free Nelson Mandela, did all that. And activism never left me because of Winnie Mandela.
Hmm.
But there have been so many people that have influenced my life at any given moment in either teens, 20s, 30s. In my 30s, it was John Inkum. He introduced Gestalt to me, and that has transformed my life. Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. I will ask you a bit more about Gestalt in a moment, but I'm curious a couple more things about you personally. And
Right.
one is how you understand or experience yourself within your gender or as a woman.
Um, as a woman, I'm glad you said as a woman and not as a female, because as a girl, that was very difficult for me. Everything seemed unfair, you know. So as a girl, I struggled with that. Thank God my father sent me to a girls' school so that I could appreciate women. I always thought that women had it so tough that I didn't like being a female. You know, I'd watch my aunts and they're working, they're coming home and cooking, they're coming home and they're doing everything. And likewise with me, you know, I go home and I have to be part of the kitchen as well as excel in my books, but I haven't had as much time with the books. So I went through um, a very tough phase where being a woman, a young lady was so unfair and, you know, trying to prove that I can be a man, I could do masculine things as well. But now I'm very comfortable as a woman at 52. I am I embrace the skin I was given. You know, I really don't care if I'm up to par because of anybody's idea of what an ideal woman ought to be. I'm comfortable in my skin as a woman, and I find women amazing. I'm not a feminist. I say I'm not a feminist because I really appreciate men's roles as well. It's almost as if you're a feminist, then it should be women first. But I think we have our own space, and it doesn't always have to compete with the other. So the young ladies that I mentor, I try to support them to understand that being a woman doesn't mean you have to be anti-male. Okay,
Mhm.
there are terrible women as well. Men have their weaknesses just as we do. Just focus on your strengths and what makes you comfortable. When you show up as a woman, what do you want others to experience? That is the focus. So yeah, I embrace my femininity and I'm very happy with it.
And I'm also interested to know how you understand and experience and use what you would see to be your privilege and your power.
Yeah, privilege and power. You know, whether you know it or not, we're all responsible for each other. So whether you have privilege or not, but those of us who have had, were born into privilege and position, the responsibility I think is even bigger. I'm not sure how many of us realize that to whom much is given, much is expected, right? And for me, very early on in my life, both my father and my grandmother told me this. So I'm fortunate that I got that awareness so much earlier in my life. because I have friends and family members who were born into privilege and position and they don't know it.
Mm.
They still want more. And so they're hungry for something and they're never satisfied. And they don't realize that giving and supporting and pulling others up is what we're supposed to use our privilege and position for. And when you do that, you actually get that satisfaction that human beings need, you know.
Mhm.
You to want more of position and more of power for what purpose? For what purpose do you
Mhm.
need more of that? If not to help another, if not to serve another or support another. And there's a lot of joy in giving.
Mhm.
Yes, I really enjoy the shifts I see in people. And it's not even about my impact alone, it's more so what they can do with themselves once they become aware of who they are.
Okay. So you've said activism. I'm wondering what that is for you. What are you active in? What is your work? What does that mean in your life, in your context?
So activism some time ago meant, if we have to go and walk and demonstrate about something. And in the past, it was usually about um, political freedom in Africa, human rights. Where I am now is more focused on actively grooming leaders for Africa. So whether at the school, my family has a school, it's 26 years old, and I just took over from my aunt who's retired at 75, 74. Um, every interaction I have with a child, I try to let them know they're important and that their existence can do things. Every engagement I have with a teacher, I try to let them understand the power they have to transform Ghana, Africa, the world. Because, you know, each teacher will have at least 20 students every year go through their lifestyle, their life span as a teacher, as their career. And when these children come out, what they are is what you've also helped put in. So
Mhm.
every interaction with the child, remember that this child could be the president when you are toothless. So,
Mhm.
what you teach that child about life, about the subjects you're teaching, will have an impact on you. They will
And what
be
you
the
teach them about themselves.
yes, they'll be the people in the civil service
Mhm.
implementing policies. It could be about your pension plan.
Mhm.
So every time you interact with a child, remember that your impact on them is going to impact on you in
Hmm.
some way or the other. So, yeah. So
Hmm.
for me, activism now is actively grooming leaders, a leadership mindset. And leadership is not always about people following you, it's leadership of self, even. So your identity, who am I? What does it mean when I show up?
Hmm.
What do I bring? Yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So switching a little bit, but not too much, back to Gestalt, I'm curious how you connected with that world or how it found you.
Wow. Gestalt, I went seeking for Gestalt. I I worked with an organization called SNV, Netherlands Development Organization, when I moved back to Ghana 15 years ago. And I needed to develop a training program, and somebody spoke to me about John Inkum of Inkum Associates, and I called him. We had a meeting. The meeting lasted 3 times the time allocated for it. And the next day I called him and said that you did something, because I said more to you than I've ever said to anyone in such a short space of time. So I want to meet you again and find out more about you, because you found out a lot about me. So we met, and when we spoke, I realized that he had something that I wanted. John had a way of minimizing the pain I was talking about. And he minimized it without realizing it, that that's what he was doing.
Mm.
And I wasn't offended. There's a way people, sometimes somebody will minimize the pain you're expressing, and it feels dismissive.
Right. Not that way.
But it wasn't that way. He kept telling me, okay, that was in the past. In the here and now, how are you feeling? So he still validated the emotion, but didn't want me to go back and open the wound
Mm-hmm.
again. And that was amazing. I told him, John, you have something and I want it. I don't know what it is, but people come to me, people talk to me about their very pertinent things, and I want to be able to help them. I mean, so far I thought I was helping them, but perhaps not. So I want to be able to do the thing you do. So how did you get here? And he told me about his life and Gestalt and how he wanted to bring the program to Ghana. Could I help him do that? I said, yes, whatever you want me to do, if it's a presentation, editing, whatever, I'm ready for it. So we had another conversation and we worked on that. And within a year, he brought it to Ghana. And I was one of the first participants. I was also the very odd participant because I was from the corporate world. I'd left the development world. I was now working for corporate Ghana, a multinational company, and I was very corporate. And I turn up, and I would say 98% of the people there were much older than me. I was in my early 30s, and they were in their 50s and 60s, and there was a 70-something-year-old there. These were seasoned people across Africa, and I think a couple of people from Germany. Um, but they all spoke a certain language that I didn't speak. I thought I'm not gonna last here. But 5 weeks over 18-month period where we go away for a week each time. Went on Sunday and came back on Saturday. By Wednesday, I wanted to kill somebody. You know, almost every Wednesday was my hump day. I mean, John would look at me in a certain way. Marianne would look at me. They could tell that Cecilia's had it. These people were hugging each other. I'm like, don't hug me unless they were very they had a certain language I wasn't used to.
Mm.
And so by Wednesday I was worn out because it was tracking them was too much, and then I had to track myself. So I was shocked when at the end I was invited to join the faculty in Ghana. I was the only one invited to join the faculty. I thought, oh
Oh.
no, they want to whip me some more. But I joined the faculty, and sometimes, training programs outside Ghana, John will invite me to go to South Africa, Dubai. But yeah, um, I was shocked. I mean, that faculty had people that I really respected. We had Professor Dan Inkum, we had Farida Arthur, Akosia Jiman, Marianne Rainey. Oh dear. But it was interesting. I've learned a lot from them. I
Mm-hmm.
don't get to spend as much time as I would like to spend with them to learn at their feet. But
Mm-hmm.
the moments I've had the opportunity to join them, I've learned so much from them.
Hmm.
So yeah.
So what do you think that they found in you, or what did they touch in you? And what did you find in Gestalt?
I found in Gestalt the opportunity to ground myself, to center myself. And I think the reason they picked me may have been the shift I made because I wasn't extremely on the other side. Even though I came from the corporate world, remember I told you love, service of the other was my thing. So
Hmm.
I was there, but I could articulate my frustrations very well, you know,
Hmm.
and I didn't mince words. I think they picked me for my boldness. If I didn't get it, I was happy to say I really don't get it, and I think this is rubbish, you know. And so I challenged them, and they had to work harder to bring me there. And they did a beautiful job with me, honestly. Um, yeah.
So what did you find? What did you find when you challenged and questioned and grounded?
Initially, I found their rude rebuttals. That's what I called it. You know, it's like stay with your frustration, Cecilia. Who says that? Like, what do you mean I should stay with my frustration? I'm here because you're supposed to learn. So I asked you a question, answer it. He said, no, I don't have to answer your question. That would be Marianne, very coolly.
Mhm.
I should say it with a smile, which just, mm, you know, but that was also what I needed. I
Hmm.
needed that pushback. And so it helped me understand a few things about myself. You know, if I said no, I'd felt I had to explain. And Marianne helped me, said, no, it's okay not to want to. You don't want to, you don't want to. You don't have to explain. And when you stop having to explain, Cecilia, you stop asking others to do the same.
Hmm.
And then you can live in the moment and experience the person fully instead of sending them back to track and
Hmm.
put the facade back on. So yeah, those lessons I can never forget.
Mhm.
I
And
remember
what
saying,
were
what is this hugging thing you all do? I mean, must we always hug when we're leaving? And so it became the buzzword, the hugging thing. Well, now with COVID, we will not be hugging, will we?
hmm No, not for a while. Hmm. Hmm.
But you can
So do
imagine
you feel like, sorry?
from from the corporate world, we do not hug.
No, I don't think Margaret Thatcher, if she was your inspiration, was a hugger.
No,
Yeah. Yeah.
we just work and get on with it.
That's not what we're here for, move on.
We get to just, get the results and go. So yeah,
Exactly. Hmm. Okay. So do you feel like you're part of a Gestalt community?
only when I'm invited to work with John and
Hmm.
some of the other faculty members. That's when I get to stay in the moment of Gestalt throughout the
Hmm.
process of work. But I mean, I develop training programs for CEOs and their management teams, and I always bring some element of Gestalt into it, either
Hmm.
deliberately and sometimes not deliberately. And then they'll follow me afterwards. What did you do? Like, what is it you did? And then I'm like, but if it's deliberate, then I can explain to them. So I try to incorporate, some of the Gestalt principles in the work I do. But
Hmm.
as a member, do I feel like I'm part of a Gestalt community? Um, More often than not, I forget that I am part of that community because I'm not actively doing something for the community, and that's how to get Cecilia.
Hmm.
If I'm serving the community, then I feel connected to
Hmm.
it. Yeah. But
Hmm.
beginning of last year, I had a moment. that really told me you really are part of this community. One of the participants from 2 years ago in South Africa remembered me. Um, his father had passed away and left some money for an African school, and he remembered me. And I thought that that's so sweet. I mean, that's so thoughtful to yeah, that touched me. I thought, wow, we are a community, and yet I'm not actively involved in it. So I was very excited when I heard about you and the work you're doing.
Okay. So, what challenges would you say that you have gone through, either in Gestalt or in a different part of your life, that you want to speak about?
Hmm.
What has really challenged you in some way?
What has really challenged me is
I think you like the challenges. That smile, I think you like them.
I'm smiling because it's a yeah. I collect people, had I mentioned that earlier.
Hmm.
And what challenges me is when they don't understand the love I have for them,
Hmm.
when their pain takes over and they forget that when I say that I'm here for you, I mean it. So either they do things to hurt me or disappoint me. And for me, I made a decision a long time ago during my divorce that I wouldn't change my heart for anyone. That whatever disappointment another person creates, I'm still going to continue giving. Do you know what I mean?
Hmm.
That challenges me, and it's not the forgiveness of the person that challenges me. No, 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 no. For me, forgiveness is a freedom I must have. Okay. What challenges me is when I haven't been successful at letting the person understand that where there is love, you do not abuse it,
Hmm.
because then you're hurting yourself.
Mm.
Because I won't hurt for too long, but then I fret for the person.
Hmm.
That how did you twist this beautiful thing into this thing? So they're still churning in their pain, and they loop you into it even though you came with a white flag. It's like, oh,
Hmm.
yeah, that challenges me.
Yeah, that is very hard to understand how people can choose or maybe not choose. I can understand it if they're not choosing, but when
Yeah,
they choose to hurt or when they choose to
to take
violate in some
advantage
way.
of
Yeah.
you. Yeah, yeah.
Hmm.
So that challenges me. I have lots of children. I have lots of children. Some are married with children, working. It's good to see how they've progressed. And I have a few recalcitrant children, but they're still my children.
Hmm.
And sometimes they suffer a shame that they whip themselves with because they can't come near me again. And I'm thinking, you can actually.
Oh.
Yeah, you can. But I'm also not going to drag you in.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't come in and do the same thing.
No, you must come in with courage and a willingness to do the work.
Hmm.
I'm not going to make it easier for you, but this is home. You, you know, and you can imagine I've been through a lot of these things to be able
Hmm.
to speak about it so clearly. Yeah,
Hmm. Yes,
yeah.
it sounds like you've learned a lot from those experiences. You're very clear.
I have, and I've watched. I've helped others who are in pain.
Hmm.
A lot of learning takes place when you help others.
Hmm.
Yeah. but it doesn't necessarily mean that it won't happen to you,
Mhm.
because love is a risk. It's a huge risk we have to take every day.
Mhm.
Um, the main thing is, for me, I've told myself that God gave me this heart for a reason. No other human being can change it.
Hmm.
So yeah, you're not going to be
Those
bigger
are the
than God.
challenges. No.
Yes, those are the challenges.
Hmm. So,
Yeah,
what about the other side? What are some of the highlights or some of those? I don't want to say achievements because I mean that sounds like a straight line and a a certificate on the wall. But what
yeah.
are some of the meaningful moments of achievement for you?
Oh, some of the meaningful achievements, to attend the graduation of a young lady from Kenya who came to school in Ghana, an orphan that my
Hmm.
daughter brought home. Um, and then she graduates in from the University of Cape Town. And I get goosebumps, just it was beautiful just watching her walk. And because that child doubted herself for so long, that but I knew that she'd get there by the skin of her teeth, and she made it. So the achievement is to see a broken soul restored and
Hmm.
stand on their own feet. That to me is yeah,
Hmm.
those are the things that make me smile. I mean, oh yeah. My daughter got married in 2019. It was a very tough year. At one stage she said, "Mommy, I mean, I'm doing my masters, I'm getting married, it's too much money. Why don't we just postpone it for another year?" And I said, "No, we're going to go through this storm. You wanted to get married in 2018. I said, finish your masters." So it is 2019. So watching her walk down the aisle, oh my goodness. In November last year. And then COVID happens in 2020. Now that is, you see, those moments where you make a choice and you're not fully aware of the meaning of that, but you just know that it has to be this. And then later on, you get the full picture, the full awareness of how providence really helped you. Yeah.
As you pay attention to those voices.
Pay attention to the voices, the gut feeling, the gut feeling. Sometimes we are trained to stay up here and not listen to the body, and yet it's all there.
Hmm.
So yeah.
Hmm. Okay. So I am curious about what you are doing now and where that's going. So what is sort of your next or what is your major focus? And also I'd like to know what you think Gestalt could or should be doing, where we are now and going forward.
Okay. So what I'm doing now, other than the family school, I do strategy. A lot of companies are re-strategizing. They need to rethink the way we work and do
Mhm.
business. So I do some of that. I'm not developing training programs as much because I don't think I'm old fashioned. I think it's just a Gestalt thing that I want to have a face to face, feel the person's
Mhm.
presence when I train. So I'm not doing so much of it at the moment, but focusing
Mhm.
more on strategy and mentoring people.
Hmm.
And yeah. Um, but I'm going to be going back into communications, and I'm very excited about that.
Hmm.
Yeah, I'm going to
Okay.
go back into communications. Communications media, yeah, for Africa. I've never worked in the media. I've worked in communications and corporate affairs for multinationals, but I've never done media, and I've been invited to do something. I'm excited about that.
Okay.
Now, Gestalt, I think there's a lot of work to do in that the world is ready for the shifts and changes we've been talking about.
Mm.
Um, I remember beginning of last year or mid last year, you had all these celebrities trying to, they needed attention still, so they were online, each one with their wise words and
Mm-hmm.
and and I'd watch them and think, oh my goodness, you need that attention, don't you? Okay, let's go. And but what it spelled out to me was that because we've been forced to stay at home, people are confronted with their real selves, who they really are. Families had to recalibrate. And during that process, a lot of thinking began. The world is ready for change, and Gestalt communities need to start doing the
Mm.
things we've been talking about. We need to walk into some corridors now. We need to walk into the corridors of science. There's so much distrust, and I don't know what we can do, but that's the whole point. We need to go there and use ourselves and use our presence to do something, because if you don't trust your scientists, then where are we going?
Mm.
And COVID, whether it's conspiracy theories or not, most people don't trust the scientists. And we're just stuck with, okay, it's either you die or you just go along with everyone else. And so if we choose the other way, it's like, okay, I've chosen to go with everyone else. It's not the way it should be. Um, I don't know if we can clean up the entire scientific world, I doubt, but we need to be there. We need to start doing something.
Mm.
It's gone past world peace, which is what you think Gestalt should be.
Well, that would be
Looking at
nice, but
that would
if we,
that would be
mm-hmm.
nice, but at the moment, the pressing thing is our very survival.
Mm-hmm.
How people are coping with this thing, you know. And by the way, I don't think COVID is the only thing going around. There's a lot of unexplained deaths as well.
Mm.
Last year, I lost 18 people,
Wow.
and I'm talking about people I know very well, and not all of them was COVID.
Mm.
This year, today is 30th January, I've lost 6 people,
Wow.
people I knew. Yeah, either
Sorry.
professionally in the UK,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, a lot
Mm.
more in the UK than the US. I have family and friends in the US, but mainly UK. And then in Ghana, it's a lot of the elderly people just died. I mean, either from a fall, epileptic fit, seizures they've never had, so unexplained deaths, and it's a lot.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And so this brings you back to a need to relate differently with science.
Yes. I think it's time that we got into that space, because I mean it's great to talk about someone's emotional state and mental um, prowess, but if there's no body, that you need a healthy body to be able to function and to make the shifts required to become
Mm-hmm.
grounded in yourself.
Yeah,
So
I think that's important. I mean, it's not just, I mean, health is not just going to come from doing enough work in therapy. It's not going to come from just making those decisions. I mean, there is the related field of science.
Yeah.
There are ways. Yeah, it's
So
interesting.
it's yeah. I think the
Hmm.
last time we spoke in any group as a community, Gestalt community, we spoke about, world peace and what can Gestalt communities do. And we spoke about, the UN and, African unity, the AU, African
Hmm.
Union, and other organizations like that. But perhaps we need to start looking at the WHOs. Yeah.
Hmm. Well, I have nothing to add to that. I'm just thinking and I'm imagining the levels of system that you're talking about. And that is stepping up.
Exactly.
That
The
is
level of
stepping very, very far up from where most of us operate. And I think that comes back to power and using it and implicating ourselves, not just being passive.
exactly.
So,
You said most of us are not levels, the systems where most of us are not there yet. But how
mhm,
do you know you can't until you actually practice? Because we have a
right.
practitioner, we're practitioner focused.
Hmm.
So we need to act, we need to start acting.
Hmm,
Um, Great Gestalt books are not being read
true.
by the masses. So we have to do and act and let people get curious enough to want to know more.
Hmm,
Yeah.
hmm.
So
Well, that
so
makes sense.
what you're doing, I am very touched by it. John spoke to me about it and said, "Would you be interested?" I said, "Yes, of course. Anything that puts Gestalt forward."
Well,
Yeah.
thank you. Thank you. So it's part of putting Gestalt forward, and it's also, like you said, collecting people. So
Yes.
hopefully it will have some kind of impact as well. So I am wondering if there's anything else that you would like to add right now, either about yourself or about this work.
Um, about myself, I haven't spoken about spirituality.
Hmm.
Um, so I think I mentioned earlier that I went through a journey reading all sorts of religious texts and decided I'd follow Christ,
Hmm.
more or less go back home to Christ, because I was born into a family, a Christian family, and the principles of Christ is what ruled the homes I grew up in. But I wonder why Christianity has become so hard. I, for me, Christ is love, and love is tough, but very soft and very tender.
Hmm.
So I have been practicing Christ without knowing, but it was great to read and come back and choose Christ.
Hmm.
Um, one of, and I'll tell you a little story about a young lady I knew who was born intersex. And in those days, the female hormone had been synthesized. So every child who was born intersex was registered as female because at age 9, hormonal therapy can be given to support that child determine its
Hmm.
adolescent growth and development. Um, but after years of taking the hormonal injections, she decided she wouldn't take it anymore. She was fed up. It was wreaking havoc on her health. So she stopped. And with that came this transformation of a female body becoming more masculine. And we were part of a community of people who never really understood this person. And I can't say I understood her, but I always liked her. I mean, she was a nice person. And I didn't understand why people were so mean to her. So I got closer just to give love. And this was in my teens. I didn't know what I was doing. But empathy is a very important action. I, 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 I can't stand it when people say, "Oh, I'm so sorry, you'll be okay." What does that mean? That
It doesn't give much.
it doesn't give much. But empathy is active. So being active meant that when this person decided, I'm not going to take this medication anymore, I was the one she chose to share very painful story with. And I, as best as I could in my ignorance, in the early 90s, I supported this person. My family, the family of the man I married, they teased me a lot. And eventually they all realized that what I'd been saying, just focus on the soul of the person, and that is all that really matters. You don't have to agree with their lifestyle, their life choices. We are not perfect ourselves. Cut the judgment and
Mhm.
just love the soul of this person. And eventually my family, African family, African families on both sides, we embrace this person. And unfortunately, we live in two different countries, and I miss him dearly. I miss him dearly. And I wonder if he knows what he did for me. He helped me clarify, even though he was an atheist and we used to have great debates about life and the creator, and we still probably will continue that debate. He appreciated the love that
Mm.
Christ gave, you know. So Christians must act love. And when you act love, you don't have to debate, you don't have to argue what Christ was about. So for me, this is a big part of me. Okay. Um, it clarifies who I am, and it guides me on my choices on what to do. So yeah,
Mm.
I became my grandma after all. Oh my days. It just dawned on me.
It's come full circle now.
Yeah, she collected people, and there were all sorts of people we never quite understood. And she gave our things away. And
There you go.
she was such an industrious woman. She was an only child for 12 years before her brother came along. And her mother was wealthy, her great grandmother was a merchant, and she just gives. Oh, we don't need it. Just give, give, give.
Hmm.
Yeah, Eunice
Hmm.
Addison, interesting woman.
Wow. Well, thank you for sharing that. I really appreciate
You're
what
welcome.
you've been, everything that you've been bringing and getting to sit with you for a while. So,
Thank you.
is there anything else that you'd like to say as a final thought, or is it okay with you if we leave it here?
That's okay with me. I wish you well. I wish you well. I hope this grows into something you haven't imagined yet. Else. Yes.
Thank you.
And I can hear your assistant. He wants to come in.
Yes, yes, my alarm is going off. So thank you.
Thank you, Heather.